You know, Charles, every time I think we've hit a new high and couldn't possibly have a better guest than we've had before, I'm proven wrong. And today we have two amazing guests, Diamond and Silk. Welcome to the show, ladies. We're delighted to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, we've been following your career, Jason and I, for quite a while, but you have this great new book, Uprising. Who the hell said you can't ditch and switch? And I'm sure you left out the profanity that is in my mind that you might come at the end of that. But I would love to have the opportunity to have you ladies tell us your story, starting wherever you want, in particular, how you grew to realize that the Democratic Party program was just a disaster, not only for African Americans, but for all Americans.
Well, you're absolutely right. The liberal ideology is what's destroying America if we look at it today.
Yeah.
Listen, it was back in 2015. I was watching it on television. Donald Trump, the candidate, announcing he was running for president. I called my sister. I said, girl, cut on your TV. I said, Donald Trump is announcing he's running for president.
And I stopped what I was doing and I cut on the TV.
I know it's turned on the TV. We're from
know
the South.
That's
and
right.
then she called me back halfway through. She said, this is going to be the next president of the United States. So it has been a phenomenal journey for Diamond and Silk. We've been stumping for this man since 2015 when he came down those escalators. We didn't like how the media was treating him. We didn't like what happened in the previous administration up under Obama and Joe Biden. We didn't like any of it. We didn't want another career politician running anything in this country. And so that's why we created the Trump train got on the train.
Well,
that's what we did. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I mean, I had a similar reaction. You have to understand, I'm not interested in politics per se. I expose complex frauds, big frauds. And I think Biden's a fraud. I think, frankly, Obama was a fraud. Certainly General Electric is a fraud. That's what I focus, and the Clinton Foundation. But when I saw your reaction and other people's reaction, it confirmed my own view that the Democratic Party consists of merchants of misery. They want to keep everybody down, everybody dependent on government. They don't want people to succeed. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, they just don't want any of that. They want power, power alone.
And they love creating chaos and confusion. As long as they can create that chaos and confusion, they throw money at the problem. But that's how they get rich at the top and leave people at the bottom poor and still struggling with the problem.
That's right. And the Democrat Party, they made the name for themselves. The party that wanted to keep slavery going. The party of KKK, Jim Crow, segregation. These are the people that created it. We talk about systemic racism, which should be called systemic discrimination, really, because it's a form of discrimination and anybody can experience it. But when we talk about even systemic racism, we're talking about these white left-leaning liberals that put these systems into place systems to discriminate against people. So these are the Democrats. This is the liberal ideology. We don't like it. And we wrote the book being thrust into the political arena to talk about that, to talk about our upbringing. Because now, people want to know, where do we come from? We're not no Johnny come lates. We're not no fly by nights. We've been at this since 2015.
That's right.
So we tell our journey. We tell our story. You can get the book at diamondandsilkbook.com, Uprising, The Awakening of Diamond and Silk.
That's great stuff. And we've noticed, Jason and I have done some walkarounds in New York since around March 16th, probably 50 of them, going all over the place. And we go to these rallies. And what we notice is, there are a lot of young kids, and there may be a few African-American people, but there are a lot of these Antifa anarchists with the scruffy beards and the dirty clothes, probably trust fund kids, agitating, whipping people into a frenzy. And that does nothing for up-and-coming, in particular, adolescent kids across the racial spectrum. I mean, it's a horrible thing they're doing.
It's a really horrible thing that they're doing. Back in the day, the KKK wore white hoods. Now we're seeing Antifa with black hoods on. Same script, different cast, and manipulate, intimidate in order to dominate.
That's right.
Which is so sad. And so what people are going to have to do, instead of look into these organizations when they try to compel you to go out there in the streets and wreak havoc.
Yep.
Wreak havoc on what? I often say this, and I've been saying this here since we've been on this journey. You know, when people come from Cuba and when people come from Venezuela, they come here because they have a place to run to. If we, as American patriotic citizens, allow these left-leaning liberals to create chaos in our streets and anarchy on our streets and want to defund the police, where are we going to run to?
That's right.
Who we going to call? Because
right.
we're the greatest country on earth. So that's why as American citizens, you have to stand up and fight against this nasty, sick, radical, liberal ideology where these people want to destroy America and fundamentally change it into the American nightmare.
And it also needs to be investigated as to who's funding this. How do they know where to meet? How do they know where to find the bricks? Who's actually behind manufacturing this crisis, this civil unrest? Because this is not natural. You know, under President Donald J. Trump, the unemployment was at an all-time low, home ownership at an all-time high. People were doing good in our country. People was doing amazing with prosperity. But now that the pandemic has come along, and now that you have this civil unrest, it feels to me that the Democrats are utilizing this virus to push this liberal agenda and weaponize it against we, the American people, and it's for political gain.
That's right. We call it crimes against humanity is what's happening.
That's right.
You're absolutely right. When you bring up the subject of organizations, that's when I, and with Jason, exposed the Clinton Foundation. Everybody says the Clinton Foundation did this, the Clinton Foundation did that. It doesn't exist legally. There is no lawfully organized Clinton Foundation, nor is there any lawfully organized Black Lives Matters. And Thousand Currents, which is a big funder for Black Lives Matters, is through Act Blue. Thousand Currents has somebody on the board named Susan Rosenberg who went to federal prison for blowing up buildings. And Bill Clinton pardoned her on January 20th, 2001. Then she wrote a book in 2011 saying she's very proud of what she did, that she did nothing wrong.
But you know what? I'm glad that you brought up Black Lives Matter. Let's talk about that propaganda organization for a minute. It's an organization that wants to disrupt and dismantle the nuclear family. So what they're saying is that they don't want a child, a Black child, a child of color, to have a mother or a father. So what are you saying to our Black men? Our Black men cannot fly with one wing.
Right.
What you want to do, you want to demonize them, feminize them, and throw them somewhere in the corner. But imagine if we had Black men standing up being leaders. You wouldn't see these young people out in the streets reaping all of this havoc, looting, breaking in stores and stealing stuff, because people are stand up. You have the leaders, the men standing up to this here and saying, no, you don't do this. Let's also look at this here. This organization is pushing Marxism. We don't know nothing about that. It's a form of socialism and communism. We were born into this country free, not as slaves. Our ancestors were slaves and we're the descendants of that. But we ain't never experienced slavery. So why are you pumping your fist to an organization that want to put you back in slavery some kind of form through socialism and communism? And last but not least, this organization has taken in millions of dollars.
Millions.
Where is the money going? Is it going to Black lives? Is it going to any of these Black communities? Is it going to any of these Black-owned businesses that was burned to the ground during the George Floyd riots? Where's this money going? So again, instead of you looking at, you better look into what's going on. Now, we believe that Black lives matter in this country, but I also believe white lives matter, Hispanic lives matter, Asian lives matter, Native American lives matter. All our lives matter. And at the end of the day, we're one race. And that's the human race.
That's right.
And you can drop the skin color, even though I'm chocolate, just call me American.
That's right.
Very well stated. Very well stated indeed. You know, there's a book that you may run across called Dupes, D-U-P-E-S, by a historian, not a political science guy, named Paul Kengor, K-E-N-G-O-R. This has been written many years ago, and it explains that this process of protesting, of burning neighborhoods down and stirring everybody up, is a process, as you say, to encourage Marxist, communist overthrow of the United States of America. Nobody sensible is for that. That has never worked anywhere in the world. And, you know, when we really sit back and think about it, we want to embrace the best of what's going on in this country. All of us do.
Right. We want the best. We want to obtain the American dream. And I don't understand the left. How can you advocate for open borders, allowing illegal aliens to come in, and you want to give them everything? You want them to rip away at the fabrics of America. But we, as Black Americans, we can't obtain that dream. You put in all of this regulation and this red tape. Well, we can't even get to the dream. And if you don't think like they do,
that's right,
and do what you want the left to do, when you start climbing the ladder, they knock you back down.
Right.
It is so sad. And this is why I love our president, because he included all people. It's America and American first. And this is what we love about him.
That's right.
Yeah, did you see, perhaps you are the inspiration, no doubt you're the inspiration for this clip that the president put out a couple days ago of a white interviewer, I think, and a number of Black men who were Trump supporters. Did you see that? That was fantastic.
I believe we retweeted that video, because that's what you see is the evolution.
That's
Let me explain this to you.
Explain.
So back in June of 2015, Diamond and Silk, what we did, we was in the midst of a revolution.
Mm-hmm.
We started the revolution. We have the battle scars to prove it.
That's right.
So now when you see people coming out almost 4 years later and speaking their truth and having the courage to speak up and having the courage to support this president, what you're seeing is the evolution. People are truly evolving into something great. I love to see them put out the videos. I love to see them echoing the same message that we've been putting out since 2015.
That's right.
So this is what you see. People are evolving.
Yeah.
America is truly great.
There's clearly an uprising going on in the underground.
Right.
There's people you see and those that you don't see. So people are seeing that, it's okay for me to come out the closet and speak loud and proud for this country and for this president.
Absolutely. And listen, our book is Uprising, The Awakening of Diamond and Silk. Get the book at diamondandsilkbook.com or anywhere that they sell books.
Absolutely. Now, have you ladies had the privilege of meeting Kim Klacik yet, the ladies running in Baltimore?
We haven't met her yet, but we heard about her, and I think she's doing an amazing job.
Phenomenal.
And we need to wake up more Americans like that. Get involved. If you don't like something, then change it. But do it the right way. We don't need all of these young people trying to be anti-America.
Right.
We want you to believe in being pro-America.
That's right.
Stand for our flag. Love this country and love your communities.
That's right.
So kudos to Kim Klacik. I think she's doing a phenomenal job.
Now, you are going to be on the campaign trail through November 3rd, or you're not campaigning, or?
We are. We've been out there a little bit campaigning, but with this book, you have to be on all of these interviews. But the one thing, we wholeheartedly support our president. And on every interview, we just sit there and talk about him.
That's right. And we tell everybody to make sure that you vote right so you won't get left. To vote red.
R-E-D, remove every Democrat.
Oh, that's very good. Very good. Right. So I promised I'd ask you just briefly about the COVID situation. We used to see you on Fox all the time, and then abruptly, no longer you're on Fox. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, well, first of all, I want everybody to get the book, because we write about that in the last chapter about the pandemic and everything, the truth about what happened to Fox. I want you all to stop believing these headlines that are nothing but salacious clickbaits in order for you to click on something and read a lie.
That's right.
Accusations without accurate information is really, truly fake news.
Fake news.
So we write about it in the book. But let's talk about the pandemic. Back the end of March, Diamond and Silk, we knew something was wrong.
Yep.
We knew that these numbers were being inflated, and we felt like it was being done to hurt President Donald J. Trump.
Yep.
Seriously. And now today, look at how they had to, the CDC had to adjust the numbers to tell us the truth.
Yep.
And even though these social media platforms, you have some in the media that don't want to be honest about it. They wanted to call us conspiracy theorists. No. Once you come out with the truth, you can drop the word conspiracy. This is a theory. This is a fact. This is what's happening. And so we're getting to the bottom of the truth. So I wonder if the media, the ones that slandered us and did all kinds of demeaning
character assassinate us.
Are they going to come back and apologize to us
Yeah.
because we told the truth? A lot of the things that you see happening surrounding COVID-19, because the virus is real,
Right.
but the stuff that's surrounding it is what the scam is.
That's the scam.
And the Democrats seem to be in on it.
That's
when
right.
you have Nancy Pelosi going to a salon
Mm-hmm.
to get her hair washed,
Mm-hmm.
and she's not wearing a mask,
Mhm.
but she's the one saying we have to wear mask, test, track, tracing.
Yes.
This is what she's saying.
Yep.
And then look at how hypocritical she's being.
Yep.
I am so sick and tired of these career politicians
Yep.
like Nancy Pelosi, who's almost 100 years old,
Uh-huh.
still trying to hold on to power
Yep.
and tell the rest of us what to do.
That's right.
I'm not doing anything else Nancy Pelosi or any of them tell me to. I voted Republican.
Yep.
I voted for Trump because I didn't want the government feet on my neck. Don't tell us what to do.
That's right.
Don't try to flatten our livelihoods. Listen, this thing has a 98% recovery rate.
Yep.
So why are you flattening Americans' livelihoods?
That's right.
People can't go back to work. Open up these states and let people go back to work. The one thing about our great president, he left us in such a surplus. All you have to do is open back up your state,
That's all you have to
and
do.
everything will take off and boom.
And they know it.
And they don't want that. So, hey, if you out there under the sound of our voice, if you're going to be mad at the left, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Jim Crow Joe Bidens, the Kamala Harris. Be mad at those career politicians
Yep.
that's working for their own greed and not the need of people, and they don't even care about you as the American people, because look at what they pushing in this country.
That's right.
Lies. And they're hypocrites is what they are.
You ladies have been such powerful voices for all Republicans. I mean, it takes such bravery. People who we've spoken to, black people who are conservatives, they tell me that they've faced a lot of racism within the black community. So I want to thank you for being brave, and I believe you both are pioneers. You've paved the way for some other people who might have felt they couldn't speak out, but in seeing you two, they're inspired to do so. Is there a future where we'll see a Diamond and Silk congressional run or something like that?
Who knows? You know, if you ever want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
That's right.
We had no plans for none of this.
None.
We have a book. We have our own show on Newsmax to come on Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a podcast. We don't know where we may end up. But one thing you know, that we're two black chicks who's down with politics. We're not politically correct. We are politically direct. We love this country. We stand for the flag.
That's right.
And we love the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. So
Well,
make sure y'all vote for him.
You've made patriotism and conservatism cool again.
That's right, baby.
That's
yes.
right.
Love your
And
country.
Yes, and those guys who were in the viral video said that being a black conservative in 2020 is the new punk rock. I want to make sure people know they can get the Diamond and Silk podcast on Apple Podcasts and everywhere podcasts are available. People are going to also want to order the book, Diamond and Silk, Uprising. It's available at diamondandsilkbook.com. It's going to lead you to all of the retailers that are offering it. People can get it, of course, on Amazon.com and other retailers that aren't controlled by the CIA. I know you have limited time, ladies. Is there anything you'd like to say before we have to say goodbye?
Yes, let me just say this here. If you're under the sound of our voices and you are on the fence about who to vote for, look at the track record.
That's right.
Compare President Donald J. Trump track record to Jim Crow Joe,
Mm-hmm.
and then make your decision. If you're on the fence, I want you to get off the fence, walk there in through the gate, and get on the Trump train and vote for President Donald J. Trump.
That's right, because if Joe Biden couldn't do it in 47 years, which is almost half a century, how is he going to do it in 4 years?
That's right.
Well, you
Absolutely.
could put it slightly differently. You could say you could compare Donald Trump's track record with Joe Biden's high on crack record.
Wow! I love it, and I may start using that. Thank you so much. I love that.
Right.
Wonderful to have you both with us. And of course, people are going to purchase the book. Everyone is excited to read it, to listen to the podcast, and to watch Diamond and Silk on Newsmax. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. I hope we can have you back in the future. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, ladies.
There we go, Charles. Diamond and Silk. Amazing. It just keeps getting better. I can't believe it.
Right. They're fantastic. Really role models for all Americans. I mean, people like in the divide and conquer, fake news, FAUX news environment, what they like to do is they like to say, well, only a black person can speak for black people, or only this person can speak for that person. And really, these happen to be two black ladies who are, as you say, pioneers. I mean, they really are thought leaders. They're courageous. They've persevered, but they've also endured withering criticism, withering unfair criticism. Hats off to the president for elevating them, and hats off to them for their tireless championing of things that are incredibly important. I mean, this isn't, as Donald Trump mentions, this isn't any old election year. I mean, this is one of the most historic election years ever, where honestly, if high on crack Biden makes it across the line, and God forbid Nancy keeps the House, and in a disaster zone nightmare scenario, they take the Senate, I think you could see the stock market back 4,000 on the Dow, down from 28, 29.
I mean, forget about the stock market. I think you're going to see people shooting each other in the streets. It's going to be just the catastrophe for sure. I'm just still amazed. We just had Diamond and Silk on the show.
Yeah. No, they're great. They're great. And
but Charles, it's interesting because it does show that what we've been doing here, you and I and the other co-hosts who joined me on Crowdsource the Truth, it's really starting to gain traction, and it's creating a platform for, they spoke briefly about Fox News not wanting to listen to their point of view about something not quite adding up with this entire story. And the fact that debate is being shut down. I mean, it's...
Yeah. Well, I wish we had had more time, because one of the things I wanted to tease out with them a little bit is this COVID-19 rush to spend trillions of dollars exercise and shut down the world is not the first time that the globalists have tried such a scare tactic. And the same thing happened on a slightly smaller but still very large scale with HIV and AIDS. When George W. Bush was, as Hillary likes to say, selected, not elected.
Was that PEPFAR? He created presidents?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, before PEPFAR, there was a call for something called the Global Fund. And the people who were all in for that, Jeffrey Sachs and that sort of person, Paul Farmer, put out a consensus statement on AIDS in April of 2001, calling for this Global Fund to be created. It came together January 22nd, 2002, and countries started, signing up to give large amounts of money. Eventually, George W. Bush in January, I think the 28th of 2003, committed the U.S. to spend $15 billion on HIV and AIDS.
Wow.
Principally in Africa. And there were people, of course, many times conservatives tend to be more careful with money, and they were saying, that's a lot of money. Are we sure we need this money to go? I mean, is it going to work? And if you said that back then, as now if you say we're spending too much money on COVID and it's too expensive to shut the economy down, people will jump all over you saying you're heartless, you don't really care.
Right.
When the truth is, and this is what I would have liked to talk a bit with Diamond and Silk about, and maybe we'll do it in the future. The truth is that a lot of that initial $15 billion and then more that went in through the Global Fund and Unitate and maybe through the Clinton Foundation, that money, just 75% of it by one reliable estimate, just disappeared. And I also wish, that we could have discussed this a bit with Marsha Blackburn, because she was very early on with her staff focusing on the incredible damage that happened with Ranbaxy, again, providing adulterated HIV/AIDS medicine into Africa. And you think about, on the one hand, you have these hopeful, bug-eyed bartenders saying that we ought to spend $100 trillion to fight the Green New Deal, and no amount of money is too large. Then when they get whatever they get, no one wants to check and see where it actually went and what damage it may have done. Did it actually help people? I think that both Diamond and Silk and Marsha Blackburn would enjoy, if they ever have time, reading this book, Bottle of Lies by Catherine Eban, which is really, I read books in a funny way. I go to the index, and then if I see something I like in the index, I read a few pages and I jump around.
Well, you read like War and Peace in an hour and a half.
Not War and Peace, but that would be more like 4 hours. But Bottle of Lies is an excellent book, heavily researched and footnoted, and really, really well written, actually, as well. It's not one of these, I'm writing a book to let you know how smart I am. I'm writing a book to tell a story that's engaging. And it is shocking the degree to which these Indian companies, not just Ranbaxy, decided that the perfect scam was to take aid money from Doomkoff Democrats and the like around the world, sending money into the globalist organizations, and then picking the check up or having monies wired out of Geneva to Africa or wherever, and then you take the money, convert it to whatever, and certainly don't spend it on drugs that could be effective. You just burn it basically and steal it. It's really we joke a little bit about this, but there's a reason I think that humans live on this planet far from any other known life forms. And it could be that the powers that be who run the place, the universe, said, you guys are so screwed up. We want you far away from the rest of all life forms, because look at what you do. I mean, you take vulnerable people. You have this guy, Governor Cuomo here in our state, just saying, what I want to do, the genius move, I think, to improve life in New York is the second the pandemic is announced, what we're going to do is we're going to release all the criminals into the streets. And then older people who are vulnerable and others who get infected with this thing, we're going to put infected people in the nursing home. So we solve two problems at the same time, right? We basically could turn these prisons, nobody's in them, so we'll knock them down and put up high rises or something. I don't know what they're going to do with it. And then we have fewer older people to take care of, so we kill them all. I mean, this guy really, and now he's tried to delay any serious investigation into what he did until after the November 2020 election. This guy is a straight-up thug criminal who belongs in jail. Cuomo.
Well, but what about his thuggish thing? I think it was this morning where he said, hey, look, Donald Trump left New York. If he wants to come back to New York, he's going to need an army.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. My understanding, growing up and as for the last long while as an adult, is that if you make the mistake, even innocently, even in jest, of threatening the president or any high-level official, knock on the door comes from Secret Service pretty quickly, and you could well go away for a long time. And what makes this remark particularly troubling is that Cuomo is a wise ass who will encourage other wise asses.
Wise guy or a wise ass?
Both, probably, but he's certainly a wise ass. Yeah. He's a wise ass, and he doesn't have a record that you can reliably. He has another high on crack record. I mean, he doesn't have. What has he delivered for New York? You've got more people leaving the state than ever before. You've got industry leaving the state. You've got lawlessness.
Crime exploding.
Shootings are up in New York City 166%. And, the solution that DeCrescio has for the city is now, everyone's happy here. No one's upset about being cooped up in an apartment. We're going to make in-restaurant dining impossible till June of next year.
He said this morning also in a press conference, he's talking about redistributing the wealth. Help me tax the wealthy to redistribute the wealth. That's socialism.
That's not socialism. It's confiscation. It's illegal. And it's not going to work. I mean, what people like DeCrescio don't seem to understand is that we all have choices. You can't, some people are stuck perhaps for a time in the city, but you make the conditions rough enough, people will leave, people will fight back. And the reason this idiot won twice is that people foolishly didn't think that he could do the kind of damage that he has done. When the remaining people wake up and decide to do something about it, particularly should Donald Trump be reelected, which I believe he will be, you're going to see this guy out of office, and I hope you'll see this guy prosecuted. I mean, how does his wife get away with getting close to $1 billion, and then when people say, well, what'd you do with it? I don't know. I can't find it. I don't know what happened to the money.
I mean, is there literally just no answer to that question at all?
There's no, yeah. And so the two of them, I mean, Mutt and Jeff, Dumb and Dumber, these guys are really.
I have a suggestion based on his earlier comment. I mean, if I were Donald Trump, I would come to New York. Of course. With my army, because he is the president. He's got the biggest army in the world. So not only is he a thug, he's a dope.
Right. Absolutely. And so anyway, hats off though to Diamond and Silk. I hope their book flies off the shelf. I have no doubt that it will.
Yeah.
And I also think they're incredible role models, frankly, for not simply for African American women, but for all younger people to say, wait a minute, don't listen to Charles and just do what he says, or Jason. Maybe you should listen to Jason, but, think for yourself. You hear something and there's a problem, it doesn't make sense to you, look under the hood. Check the motor. See if everything's connected up in the car. I mean, don't just buy a jalopy from some guy who's going to, collect a magnificently large commission for selling you a piece of junk. That's what the Democrats have been doing, and frankly, establishment Republicans have been doing since 1945, if not before.
They should hopefully inspire, additionally, all these people who are in the streets calling for redistribution of wealth. I mean, let's look at what these two ladies did, Charles, because they said just now, they didn't set out to become media celebrities or whatever. They just started sharing their opinion on like Facebook or YouTube or a podcast or whatever they did. I mean, it looks like they're in their house. They don't have some amazing studio or whatever. And now they're national and even international celebrities. They've been to Congress. They've met the president.
Regularly met the president, yeah.
But I mean, I'm just saying, they appear to be black and they don't seem to be oppressed from exercising their dreams and doing the things that they want to do. So all these people that are saying that there's systemic racism and that, people can't get ahead and they need the government to give them jobs, these are two individuals who just relied on their own ingenuity and their own creativity, and they've become huge superstars.
Yeah, I mean, people who spend all their time bemoaning their fate and suggesting that the solution is, you didn't build that, give me what you have, redistribute the wealth, clearly have little experience studying history and traveling outside the United States of America.
Or trying to do anything.
Right. Yeah, let alone trying to do anything. And I think a whole generation of young people has been sold into intellectual slavery, or whatever the right phrase is, by going through these universities and high schools, being taught by people who claim that they're progressives, but in reality are just stone cold fools, dangerously stone cold fools. I mean, when I very luckily, thanks to my parents, was able to travel. The first time I went outside the country to a rough place was in 1975 to Egypt, and that was 2 years after the second war.
When did they study King Tut's tomb? That was around then, wasn't it?
Not when I went there, though.
But I mean, like 1970, they found it, right?
Well, I forget when they found it. But my point is, I began travel. That's on the African continent. I was back to Ghana in 1976, and then I've been to about 70 countries around the world. Not always, the great, nicest city in every country or whatever. Many dangerous, challenging places. And every time I would come back,
I was way off.
Yeah, I was going to say, I may be old, but I'm not that old.
But didn't they have it at a museum in the 70s? Maybe it was in a James Bond movie in the 70s.
I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
Charles.
But so when you think about what conditions are like outside this country, and then you look at the hard data that does exist for how much people earn, how much people they may have by way of wealth, it's not the case that when you wake up, when you realize that you've got to get a job at whatever age that might be, and you discover that you realize that your name is X or Y, it's not like you automatically are going to get a job because you're rich, or automatically not going to get a job because you're poor. I mean, the people who decide they have a skill and really try to perfect their skill, they don't say, I want to be the most mediocre carpenter in the world, or I want to be the most mediocre basketball player. You got to pick something that you think you can really be good at, and go for it. Spot your opportunities. That's what you're doing here with Crowdsource the Truth. I mean, is there anything else like Crowdsource the Truth?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, you came up with this 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And 4 years ago, whenever you did, and look what you've built with the tools that are available to anybody on the planet who has electricity. Now, that's a lot of people here and very few people
You
in
need
Africa.
a phone, too.
Phone too, that's true.
But most people have that. The alternative, Charles, if your father wins lots of Emmys, you could become the president of television.
That's true. That's true. That's true. So, yeah, I mean, I honestly think that a major league problem, speaking now as somebody who spent time as a single parent, it is very difficult if you have children, particularly more than one child. It's tough enough to be a parent if they're two adults who are in love with each other, who are cooperating to bring the children up. When you start introducing the idea that there's only one adult and that one adult might be fighting with the other adult,
or one of them is in jail.
Right, or one of them is in jail, and you have a whole bunch of other kids running around, let's say of yours, and they're hanging out with other kids. And I remember kids are easy to manage, assuming they're healthy, until they get to be about 7 or 8, roughly that time frame. That's when they start watching TV they shouldn't watch, and they start saying ideas, and they're preteens, and it's in that moment where you really need to be on your game to try to instill in these children an interest in learning, as Marcia explained in her family, a feeling that you really need to give more than you take, that you leave the world a better place. These are things that are tough to explain to a 9-year-old, who discovers Playboy for the first time, which I know they don't have so much.
I'm familiar with that.
Right. Yeah. And wants to go hang out with all of his friends or whatever, or whatever the girls do at that age. And so having responsible parents around is incredibly important. And then talking about money at a young age is pretty important. I came from a background where you don't do that, but I really think it is important to explain that money, and my children used to joke that we go to the ATMs and that was the money store. We just go and get the money.
Phil Rizzuto for the money store.
Right. So, but explaining, above all else, when I got together and proposed and married my wife, we had a 5-year period where we were both making a lot of money, each of us, on Wall Street, and we could save money. So there's a big difference in your life if you get into the discipline of spending less than you earn and then trying to invest that money for the long run. You have a very different life than if what you hear is, no matter how much money I make, I'm going to borrow more than that because, lenders will give it to me, car loan people will give it to me, you name it, and I'm always going to be in debt. I mean, it's a very different way of leading your life, and there's not enough responsible education, of parents, frankly, and then of young children. All they want, more toys, more candy, more this, more that.
Well, right.
And so I think Diamond and Silk, going back to them, have done the world a remarkable service. I hope that, look at them in the Oval Office there.
I mean, that alone is a huge achievement, to get to meet the President of the United States.
Right, to put your hands on the President without being shot.
That's great.
No, but and I think the President has genuine affection for these ladies, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I also believe that there is, the white liberal intelligentsia, in quotes, shouldn't be quotes, it should be with an X through it, but they, I believe, have seriously misunderestimated how people think, particularly not necessarily by race, but by income, how people think of this great country. People love the rags to riches, Horatio Alger story, which is possible today. It's more possible today in America than it is in almost any country on earth.
And also more possible than ever before. If you have good ideas and a good way of speaking and presenting yourself, you can make a video with your sister in the living room and become an international celebrity.
Right, and have a nice lifestyle. And
if you're a dope whose father was the governor, you can be this too. These two. That's a good contrast. Diamond and Silk compared to the Cuomo brothers.
Or Diamond and Silk compared to Dumb and Dumber.
Right. I don't think Diamond and Silk's father was the governor.
Oh, definitely not.
I don't think Diamond and Silk have destroyed New York and gone on the news and lied to people about it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So if they're Diamond and Silk, these guys are coal and sandpaper.
That's right. Or something that you put in the Fresh Kills landfill. But I think these two and the folks who are desperate to prop up high on crack Biden as president of the United States, they're all in for a scheme where you don't want a strong leader like Donald Trump. You don't want somebody who can think for himself, who could say no to the experts and no to the political consultants and others. The cronies, the people who love unregulated globalism, they're all in for this Biden character who,
Whoa. I didn't realize he was smoking crack in the strip club.
Right.
That's
why I said high on crack track record.
But I mean, Charles, if Eric Trump did this, if Don Trump Jr. did this, it would never stop being spoken about.
Right.
Smoking crack in a strip club.
He learned how to do that at Yale Law School. I mean,
does it get worse?
Yeah, I mean, if you're, I suppose it does, but
while working for Ukraine, it does get worse. Did he shoot anybody?
Well, right. I mean, typically when you go and you try to raise money today for a private equity fund is a term of art. It means that it's typically a partnership where you sign up, the investors sign up to give you large amounts of money over a fixed term, typically 5 years. And so you're giving control of that money, the investment decisions of that money, to what's called the general partner, and typically that's a company. Normally, I've created several funds that way, you go through intense due diligence. We had, in our case, the international one we did in Ireland, we had the Central Bank of Ireland to perform extensive due diligence on every aspect of anybody who had anything to do with managing the fund. And in the course of that, if you have to say, my qualifications are, I know how to smoke crack, but not well enough.
Here's the money.
But not well enough not to get caught. I like to go to strip clubs. You can never get in trouble there. And I like to take money from foreign countries when my father's the vice president in charge of Ukraine policy. Typically, a responsible investor will look at that and say, you're fired. There's no way. And so the notion that Hunter Biden and his firm would collect $1.5 billion from the Chinese.
Somebody swapped the risk management book with the Ovaltine instructions or whatever it was.
It's a crack management book. I mean, it's preposterous on its face. And I was actually, as I do almost every week now, I was asked to give responses to Katya Vlanova at Sputnik on the latest revelations about Biden and what's going on here, and this idea that the Russians supposedly are promoting the theory that Biden has impaired mental faculties, and that's why people aren't going to vote for him. And I mean, you look at
that's a conspiracy theory, or that's medical fact.
Well, no, that's what ABC reported just now, that it is that the Russians are promoting the view. You could Google ABC, Russian, and Biden, and you'll see that they're promoting the idea that it's a Russian plot to suggest that Biden has impaired, this one of the stories there.
It's a Russian plot. Everything is a Russian plot. Maybe we should move to Russia. They're able to control, depending on who you ask, either Russia or Israel control everything in the world.
But the thing, I in response to her questions, one of the things I pointed out, I mean, think about how impaired this Biden guy is. In 1988, he claimed that he was top of his law school class, did great marks undergraduate, and then in some impassioned speech, he lifted it virtually word for word from a speech that Neil Kinnock, the Labour Party leader in the UK, had given. And there was a firestorm. He denied it. Ultimately, he had to admit that he had lied. And he abandoned his campaign in 1988 for president because he was an admitted plagiarist and liar. And
what do you mean abandoned? He just conceded and said,
he just gave up. He just he stopped running, and he gave a speech explaining, I lied and I've got to give up my campaign.
Oh, he did.
Absolutely.
He admitted to lying.
Absolutely. And so you're sitting there, and now it's what is that? 32 years later. It's like, well, there's a statute of limitations of making an utter fool out of myself. I live on now. I live in this fancy estate. In the 10,000 square foot estate that somehow I bought, although I've never had a meaningful job in the private sector by the time I got the estate. And people are just going to forget about the idea that I lied and I had to abandon my 1988 campaign out of sympathy, perhaps, for the fact that my son died, or out of sympathy, the fact that my other son decided it would be a good idea to date his widow. Or that my other son is into crack and strip clubs and multiple girlfriends at once and, taking money from the Chinese.
They left it out of the headline. I wonder if that strip club trip was where he impregnated the stripper, because that would be like the trifecta.
That's right. Yeah, great weekend.
Crack, impregnating strippers while working for Ukraine. That headline prompts me to look a bit deeper into his job description. Like, what? It's like, oh, strip club attendance? Yeah, all right, fine, I'll take the job.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's really, I think of presidential sons who are screw-ups. I mean, this is.
He's one of the top, right? Oh, but Biden wasn't a president.
Or Washington D.C. Paul's children who are unbelievable screw-ups. I mean, can you think of one who's worse than Hunter?
Didn't Gerald Ford's daughter have a drug problem, or that's?
Yeah, that's a little different. I mean, she wasn't taking $1.5 billion from our sworn enemy, the Communist Chinese,
and smoking crack at the strip club.
Yeah, exactly. Or he also I think had crack in a rental car somewhere out west.
Yeah, they found a crack pipe in a Hertz car, and you can now buy one of those crack smoked Hertz cars from Hertz. Charles. They're going out of business, so they're selling the cars.
That's amazing.
If you could get Hunter Biden to sign the crackmobile, maybe.
That's what they're going to call it. Biden wins. That's what they're going to call the beast.
Hunter Biden's crackmobile.
No, the beast will become the crackmobile.
I bet you the cigarette lighter doesn't work anymore. It's got to light that crack pipe with the thing.
Amazing.
Now, I did want to ask you something. So Phil Rizzuto, he's a baseball player. Why was he? The money store was like what, a loan thing?
I don't know.
It's not actually that important. But when you were talking about leveraged buyouts, or what was it that you were talking about?
Private equity funds.
Private equity funds. The first thing that came up was BlackRock. Did you see that?
Blackstone, I think.
Blackstone, right. So first of all, what's the difference between BlackRock and Blackstone? And there's
a stone and a rock.
But it sounds sort of similar.
I'll tell you exactly what the difference is. Blackstone is, I was around when Blackstone was created. I had a meeting with Pete Peterson and
G. Peterson created this. That's why I've heard of it. That guy is a problem.
He's dead.
I know, and that's his best bit of luck.
Oh, that's it, yeah. So Pete Peterson and Steve Schwartzman, it was almost like a scene from The Producers. We went over to their first office. It was a rent office. Dillon Reed whenever this was, around 1985, I want to say, is when they created the firm. And they had like 1 or 2 rooms and people running around like crazy. And we sat together. This guy, Peterson used to be the chairman of Lehman Brothers. Schwartzman used to be a partner there, and we had a bunch of Lehman partners that came to Dillon Reed, and they dragged me over for a meeting to do a big leverage buyout in 1985. And I was right there. It's just like you and I are talking right now. I mean, they had no infrastructure, no secretaries, nothing. They had just moved into this room, rent office, and they started being an advisory firm. Then they got into very wisely into private equity and into a whole bunch of other things. And they're a very big firm. In contrast, Larry Fink created BlackRock. Larry Fink is, Peterson was, I think, a Republican. Schwartzman is definitely a Republican. Peterson was Commerce Secretary. I told you about Peterson before, remember?
You have, and the reason why I was intrigued by it is because David Hawkins has spoken quite a bit about Peter G. Peterson with regard to the murder of Valerie Percy.
Right.
He was a suspect, apparently, and it was never solved.
Well,
and he had something to do with Bell and Howell, his father.
He was chairman of Bell and Howell.
Chairman of Bell and Howell.
Yeah. He was the guy, remember this, should I repeat it or not, the tennis thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the guy where I went to this great place, John Gardner's Tennis Ranch, that is no longer in business. And I and this guy who was, I think, a number of years older than I was, who had 2 teenage superstar tennis players who were there during the Christmas, New Year's season. And as it happened, a lot of very fancy people would be there at that time. And we would just play a lot of tennis. And I mean, when I say a lot, I mean 8-9 hours of tennis a day, which is quite a bit. And we got to know each other very well, and we were telling tales and having a drink near the hot tub, and we get in the hot tub. And we're just yucking it up. And this guy comes lumbering over the hot tub. And he takes off his shirt. And it's like he's a woolly mammoth. He's got he's got more hair all over him than most old animals still retain, and it was all whitish, grayish,
like
or
the
whatever.
Silverback
And
gorilla.
like Biden, has said when he gets into a pool, his hair on his legs floats to the surface. Similarly, on this guy, the hair was everywhere. Like the two of us, it was a big hot tub, but me and this other guy were like inching away from the hair and don't get that shit on us.
Boy.
And so we start talking about, I guess, the Middle East or something. And this guy was a dentist. But he had views, and we're talking about this and talking about that. And Peterson was all the while, trying to inch into the conversation and let us know who he was and how important he was. I knew exactly who he was. The dentist had no clue who he was. So the dentist says something about the Middle East. Peterson very, professorially, pompously starts saying, this is what he thinks should happen, and da da da. And the dentist cuts him off and says, "That's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life."
Did Peterson say?
And Peterson just literally, it was like one of those cartoon moments where he just gets up, the hair stays on his body, and exit stage left. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, he's come up in conversation several times. I never heard of the guy before David Hawkins told me about him, but Chicago Tribune reports that, this murder 50 years later remains unsolved, the slaying of Valerie Percy, and David Hawkins alleges Peter G. Peterson was the likely suspect.
Wow.
And he's got a lot of interesting evidence.
That's quite a story. Well, that's what is it? The strange death of Valerie Percy might be.
Exactly. We should do that with David Hawkins.
Yeah, a lot of bad stuff seems to come out of Chicago. But anyway.
Yeah. Perhaps you could give, character witness testimony having to do with the hair.
Yeah.
Phil Rizzuto is like a pitcher or something, isn't he?
Was he a pitcher or a catcher?
I don't know, but
I'm not really
Rizzuto for the money store. It's a good place to go, I guess, if you need a loan in 1978.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Fair amount of, we're sitting here, it's now the 3rd of September, so we're 2 months away, 61 days away, I guess, from the election. And I really do think the market was way up yesterday and then down today because Dr. Fauci said that unlikely to have a vaccine by the end of the year.
See, this is interesting. What do you think about this Trump? Everyone is very upset that Trump is pushing vaccines. I also do not like vaccine pushing, but he's now saying, it's going to be ready in November. And all the Faucis and all the people who are racing toward a vaccine are saying, no, that's too soon. Is Trump setting up an argument where he's saying, well, wait a minute, you're the ones who said we needed to rush it. Why is this too soon?
Well, again, I think you know more about the medical field than I do. I have some experience, sad recent experience with my first wife on it, and my mom. But the thing is that doctors, when it comes to really knowing a patient for over long periods of time, they can get stuff grievously wrong. I mean, even though they might have known you for 30 years, they can still, with all that experience and all that, they look in the eye, they can tell if something's wrong, they can test you, and they have this deep experience with you. You had a bad reaction to this and a good reaction to that or whatever. If one doctor or a team of doctors can get something wrong with one person, in no way can one doctor in logic, prescribe what's right without having seen any of the 335 million Americans say categorically, this is what you need to do. And remember that he's an epidemiologist. He is not a psychiatrist. Some say he's not an economist, which is a lesser, certainly not close to being the same as a medical doctor. But, there are lots of things to consider when you make these decisions. And it's not like, your job as a manager is to just hire experts and then say, okay, today I'm going to paint my house. I'm going to hire a painting expert. What am I going to do? Whatever the person says, that's what I'll do. I mean, what value are you adding? If you're going to be a manager, if you're going to be the president, you rely on experts, you question experts, you have experts fight it out amongst some other. You search for competing views, and ultimately the buck stops with the president, not with the expert. So this whole, Joe Biden's going to follow the science. I mean, he can't even follow the leader. The guy
can't even follow the bouncing ball in a Mickey Mouse cartoon.
Right. I mean, there was something, I don't know if you saw it today, that I think I circulated it on Twitter. Somebody did a hysterical tweet video or whatever where they put, I think it's entitled Joe Biden's hand signal guy or whatever. They did a mythical montage of Joe Biden, and then in the inset corner there was a guy doing sign language trying to handle what Joe Biden was saying. I mean, it's very, very funny. You take real clips. There we go. This clip. Look at it. I put it up this morning. Look how many views it has now. It's not because of me, obviously. It's other people have been circulating it. He gets more and more perplexed as to what he should actually do as the sign language guy. But
hey, Joe Biden is the biggest. I can't believe that people think, like, I speak to intelligent people who dislike Trump and are like, yeah, I'm voting for Joe Biden. It's like, wait a minute. Aren't you aware that he can't complete his... Oh, that's fake news. Is it? Because I've seen it come right out of his mouth.
Yeah. It's just, you'd have to be, I mean, sitting here, if you're a Biden supporter particularly, they say they raised $300 million for Biden in the last month or whatever, and I think that's a lot of that coming from Act Blue and diverted from Black Lives Matter.
Whoa, right.
Yeah. And so I don't think that big money people are writing checks for this.
He ain't black. Don't you think people would be upset if they wanted to send money to Black Lives Matter and it went to dumb Joe Biden?
I think.
Oh.
Yeah, he has, all, as somebody said about somebody else decades ago, Joe Biden has all the composure of a rat doused in gasoline as you put that rat, bring it towards the campfire. I mean, he's confused. And I don't really care very much about his family, but I do have, feelings for other people, and we're all on the planet together at this time. I just think that people who are letting this yahoo actually pretend that he could serve as the president of the United States are doing Biden, are doing people in this condition a major league disservice. I am aware there's a man named, it was Murchison, it was the name I was trying to remember, who was the legendary oilman, real estate tycoon, etc., who created...
Clint Murchison.
Yeah.
He was involved in the Kennedy assassination.
Well, Clint Murchison, I got, again, that same year that I was in the meeting with Pete Peterson, whatever, I went down to Texas, and I went and met with Clint Murchison, not senior and not junior, but the third.
Wow, you're rolling with some deep state scumbags, Charles.
Well, I was 20 and 12. I was 27.
Is there Clint Murchison the third? Maybe it was just junior.
It was
He died in 1987.
It was the third, the son of this guy. This guy really had a major league problem at the end of his life with, I think it was, it might have been, here it talks about his bankruptcy and death and whatever. I mean, he had people who...
two brothers, John and Burke.
Yeah. But I remember this fellow, I won't you give his name, but we landed at Dallas Airport, and Clint III picked us up in this diesel Mercedes, and we went over to a meeting to go and look at what was left of the estate. And this is before, I don't know when he went bankrupt, but I think it was before they went bankrupt. And it was like I was expecting to see somebody say, all right, here's a gigantic pile of assets over here, $2 billion, and the liabilities are $200 million, and so I'm worth $1.8 billion. And it was like, well, here's an asset. Okay, that's worth nothing. Here's that's worth nothing. Here's some liabilities. Those are big. Those are very big. And you look at that, I don't think we can do much with all this. And so we went from there. And I'll never forget this. We went from that meeting, maybe the next day, we drove over to meet with Sid Bass, the legendary son.
Bass Pro?
No. You punch it in, S-I-D, Bass.
I'm still trying to look for Clint Murchison the third.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so we go over to meet with Sid Bass.
What did he do?
And he was the son of a very rich man, and he made a lot of money. And anyway, so we're going to talk. We tried to talk to him about it. And he was actually really interesting. He was engaged, and he had a whiteboard, and he started thinking about stuff, and we started going back and forth on ideas. And next thing you know, in walks this woman, and man, it was Sid Bass's parents, And I want to say we were in like July or whatever down in Fort Worth, and it was really baking hot. And this woman is wearing an ice cold office. She is wearing a fur coat with like, so much jewelry that her hands were on it, And she, honey, your father and I are going to go ice fishing this weekend in Iceland. You want to come? No, Mom, I'm busy. Well, we're going to fire up the jet. And we'll go over there and do some ice fishing. Anyway, then he was going through all this stuff. A legendary line to me in 1985. He said, well, I don't know, private equity. I really don't like the market right now. So I've got about $1.9 billion in cash. And I think, I'll make that $2 billion I have in cash, not $1.9 billion. I think, here's a guy who forgot about $100 million all in cash, and I'm sitting here with $50,000 in my money market account or whatever.
And I'm probably at the movie theater watching Back to the Future while this meeting is happening.
But I bring all this stuff up to say that even people who are well known can make and lose vast fortunes. And I think what Diamond and Silk are doing, which is really good, is encouraging young people who are impressionable across the ethnicity scale in this country to reject, dunder-headed violence and burning and looting and whatever, and behave responsibly. I mean, they're behaving responsibly. They built up a nice media empire.
Fantastic brand.
And they're a delight to interact with. We didn't give them questions in advance. No. We just talked, and it was a real treat.
And thanks again, Charles, for arranging that. It's amazing the level of guests we've been able to get on the show. This was a bonus show for people, and you and I hadn't really prepared anything either, other than the conversation with them. Did you want to chat about anything else?
No, I think it's good. This is a bonus show, and keep it short and sweet. Right. And we'll hope that the city survives between now and Sunday, when, if the weather holds, we'll try to do a walk around. One thing we could point out, I would urge people to be very, very cautious, particularly in the big cities. I'm seeing more and more Antifa tags on the street and on buildings around, and I'm wondering if their diabolical plan is not to start burning things down more widely.
It's kind of marking their territory.
Right, and saying this is a building you ought to try to burn down when we start riling things up. Remember that Labor Day in theory, honors laborers and unions. Then we have the anniversary of 9/11. Right. So next week is going to be a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And it sure looks to me as if the team of Biden-Harris is not exactly covering itself in glory. I think the correct phrase would be horse manure.
And then they could roll around in almonds and make like a nice snack for Joe Biden's friends in the pool. Well, so Charles, sorry, had to make a tasteless comment. I want to thank you for helping secure amazing guests. Diamond and Silk, that was fantastic. Thanks to Diamond and Silk. Thanks to everybody for watching. And please don't forget, become a sponsor. Go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Huge thanks to the generous Patreon and Subscribe Star sponsors. Charles, I'll see you on Sunday. Thanks everybody for watching.